Hello, everyone. I'm Ellie from Nourishment Redacted, and welcome to Lioness Lifestyle Live.
And I am Cristie from Meeting Wellness, and we are so excited to meet with all of you this evening.
And I'm Adrian Bloodhill, coming to you from the family car. If you have any questions today for our two guests, please put a QQQ or question. We'll be happy to get to it.
And that means it's time for this week's Roar of the Week. So this one coming from someone who's been our Roar of the Week before, but I love her comments. Brain Over Binge Coach Julie said, "What an important conversation," referring to our show last week with Linda. So if you haven't watched that, go give that a watch. But thank you. So interesting to learn about her strategies. If you just leave us a comment below the replay of this video, we will hunt through them and find a comment to shout out for next week's Roar of the Week. Thanks so much, Coach Julie.
Yeah, that's such a great comment. Thanks so much. And why wait any longer? Please welcome JC and Barbara from the Cirs Group. Hello, welcome.
I love the music, I have to say. It's really fun.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We like to have fun and make it lively because this is so important to share about our healing journeys and our stories. Why don't we start with you, JC, first? Tell us about yourself, your healing journey, and why you eat a carnivore diet.
Yeah, well, thank you all for having us here today. We're very excited to talk to you and your guests. So for me, carnivore I accidentally stumbled upon carnivore. There's no other way to say it. I had started a keto diet in 2017. My coworker said that she was going to do a keto diet, and I immediately went on PubMed because I was like, you're going to kill yourself. Like, you can't eat a high-fat diet. And then lo and behold, PubMed was like, no, actually, high fat reduces inflammation like crazy. So I was like, yeah, I'll try this thing. So I had tremendous success with keto, I felt at the time. But it was very difficult for me to stick to. It was very binary. If I was like a gram over my carbs, I was like, well, might as well eat a whole pizza. So it was difficult for me to stick to. And then I heard this guy, Dr. Sean Baker, the man, the myth, the legend, talk about the carnivore diet on Joe Rogan. And I was like, oh, so it's like keto, but it's easier because you don't have to track anything. And I did a carnivore diet for 1 month. And prior to carnivore, I had OCD since I was a teenager. And it was debilitating in a lot of ways. I had some like medical insecurities. So if I saw a mole on my body, I thought it was trying to kill me, and I would personally remove it and then have to go to the doctor and get stitches. I would also have trouble leaving my house sometimes. I'd be really concerned that the door was locked, walk all the way down to my car, and then be like, did I lock my door? Knowing that I wouldn't have walked away from the door had it not been locked. But I'd walk back up to my front door, make sure it was locked, and I would do that 50 times. And I would get so frustrated I wouldn't be able to leave for work. And it was something I tried to manage through behavioral therapy. It was something I tried to manage through prescriptions, and nothing really ever seemed to help. And then I tried this crazy carnivore diet for 30 days. And my OCD didn't go away in that 30 days, but it was enough impact for me to keep going. Even after going to the doctor's office and her seeing my blood work and being like, you look amazing, you've lost weight. And she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm doing this crazy carnivore diet thing. And she told me immediately, she was like, you need to eat lower fat, you need to eat vegetables. And I was like, that can't be right. You can't have just told me I'm doing a great job, I lost all this weight, I'm managing my OCD, and now you're telling me it's not my diet doing this, when for years we've tried so many other things. And so within that 30 days, I had enough benefit that I was like, I need to keep doing this. Eventually, it improved my quality of life so much. After about the 9-month mark, I really didn't notice the OCD anymore. I call it an angry little toddler in my head, always berating me and like telling me what to do. And at the 9-month mark, I didn't have the toddler anymore. So for me, that would have sold me. like that alone was enough benefit. I would have kept going. But I also had this amazing benefit of not having the joint pain I had had basically my entire young adult life. And it was enough that I was able to pursue a really big goal of mine. I'd always kind of been fascinated by bikini competitors and wanted to compete, wanted to train for a competition, but never felt like I could because of that joint pain. But with Carnivore, it completely eliminated that for me. It really helped with my my performance in the gym. And so I was able to do that competition in the summer of 2021. And then following that, I did get sick with Cirs, and I know we're going to circle back to that. But I really think fundamentally, the carnivore diet has allowed me to maintain my health in the sense that even through Cirs, eating a carnivore diet, my OCD never returned.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing that. We will circle back and ask a little bit more questions, but Barbara, why don't you share about yourself?
Yeah. So I came to Carnivore through a similar path, also Rogan, but mine was Jordan Peterson talking about it. And I tried a lot of other diets in my life. I had some GI issues that I was trying to correct. So I think I went through like paleo, and I tried the GAPS diet, and I just played with different things. You know, I was vegetarian for 3 years at one point, many years ago at this point, but nothing really helped. And so when I heard Jordan Peterson talk about it on Rogan, I thought, you know, maybe I should try that out. And I did more research. This was September 2020 when I was actually diagnosed with SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So at that point, I knew I was facing antibiotics or maybe trying a significant diet change. I know that the GI doctor that I saw that diagnosed me never asked me what I ate, which I thought was wild. And I actually asked her, I thought, don't you care like what my diet is? Aren't you going to ask me that? And she goes, no, that doesn't matter. So I never saw her again, obviously. But fast forward through, you know, doing research and the holidays and all of that, I decided to go carnivore that following January 1st. And yeah, and so that from that point forward, I think my GI issues never fully resolved, although they did get a little bit better. What I really noticed was the energy instantly. I didn't even realize I had fatigue until I kind of had gotten rid of some of that inflammation that was weighing me down. I lost like 16 pounds in the first month, which of course was not fat. It was just inflammation and water weight, and my body just kind of purging of all of that. But everyone at the office complimented my skin, that I looked like I was glowing, and you know, all my clothes fit better because I wasn't like puffy as much. But yeah, that all of those things, a lot of the stuff that JC was talking about, you know, joint pain, little things that you don't even notice are a problem. You don't notice it until it's gone, which was great. So yeah, so of course my GI symptoms persisted, and so that's kind of where Cirs comes into play. But yeah, that's my carnivore journey.
So how did you guys know you had Cirs? How did you get from carnivore to Cirs?
Judy Cho. Pretty much. JC, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so following my bikini competition, I had an autoimmune crash. And autoimmune is not something I had ever dealt with before. For me, it manifested as ankylosing spondylitis. It's a type of spondyloarthropathy. For anyone who's interested, it's related to HLA-B27. So things like pediatric arthritis are also related to the same gene. So that's kind of relevant because Michaela Peterson had pediatric arthritis, and now she's, you know, come out and said she had Cirs. But for me, it manifested as like terrible GI issues, really bad joint pain. For a while there, I was walking with a cane. So it was less than 6 months between standing on stage and walking with a cane. And the third thing I had was uveitis, which is inflammation of the inner eye. And I was blind in my right eye for a good period of time. And eventually those symptoms kind of reduced, but I still had a lot of the Cirs symptoms, which is more like fatigue, chronic pain, trouble sleeping, peeing a lot, drinking a lot, getting static shocks at the grocery store when none of my family members were getting static shocks. And I had a meeting with my rheumatologist, and I was in so much pain. I would lay awake at night in pain. And I had a meeting with my rheumatologist, and he was like, I think we need to stop thinking that this is a flare and just accept that this is going to be your quality of life. And I just broke. Like I couldn't imagine living that way. And I started having suicidal ideation, which is a common experience for CIRS patients. I think your body is so stuck in this place of unwellness that your brain is looking for any form of escape it can. And obviously suicide is not an actual escape, but I think your brain just goes to really dark places when you're suffering that much. And so I kind of expressed my feelings towards this rheumatologist and that appointment on Instagram, and Judy Cho messaged me and she's like, I think you might have CIRS. And so I kind of looked into the CIRS box and I was like, oh, that's really overwhelming. That's not me. I have an autoimmune condition. I just closed that box real quick and was like, no, thank you. And I think it was like a couple weeks later and she's like, no, really, I think you should look into this. And like Judy Cho is a nutrition expert. And so I feel silly for like pushing her away at first. But lo and behold, it turned out I did have CIRS. And a really cool thing about a CIRS diagnosis is there's 2 steps you can do before you even have to get blood work to confirm with a 98.5% certainty that you have CIRS. So it's really nice because there's not a huge gate to diagnosis like there is for a lot of different illnesses. And so I was able to do those 2 steps before getting the blood work to kind of confirm in my own mind that that was the path for me.
Yeah. And for me, similarly, I was just whining on Instagram about being a year into carnivore and my GI issues were still not resolved. So I think I posted a picture of like all these supplement bottles of like probiotics and digestive enzymes and all these things. And throughout that year, I had, tried beef only, and I tried cutting out coffee, and I did all the carnivoring harder, and I was frustrated because yes, carnivore made my life so much better, made me feel so much better, but still the reason I came to it was holding on in the form of GI issues. And so I was whining publicly. And again, Judy, I think she sent a DM or she's gotten my comments and was like, Barbara, talk to me. We need to have a discussion. So, because she had just discovered it as a thing, and she was just, nosedive right into all of the fun research, which of course, eventually JC and I also did, because there's a lot to research and there's a lot to read up on it. But yeah, that was a big turning point for me. And I jumped right in. As soon as Judy said, oh, you need to get this test and do this, I was like, yep, cool, will do. I would love something other than trying to carnivore harder right now. So, and to compare, JC, as you noticed in her story, was this very acute, kind of out of nowhere, like painfully, like it was just night and day, the difference between healthy JC and sick JC over the course of just, really months, if not weeks. And for me, I mean, I may be suffering with GI issues for years. And it just like was slowly getting worse over time to the point where I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't normalize it anymore. So I just like to point that out because of how different our CIRS manifestations are, because everybody is different, but we are like on opposite ends of the spectrum in a way.
Yeah, so CIRS just seems to me like, I mean, I don't have it. And so it just seems so mysterious to me as a person who doesn't have it. And, I've met Adrian and you two ladies and, a few of our wonderful viewers in the chat. Thank goodness, I think, for Judy Cho, for both of you, for just kind of turning a light on that for you guys. So what does that look like when you get diagnosed with CIRS? And since your cases are so different, like, are you doing different things to address it, or is it kind of the same solution?
So it might be helpful to explain a little bit about what CIRS is. So CIRS, or chronic inflammatory response syndrome, happens when someone who's genetically predisposed to being really sensitive to biotoxins encounters a biotoxin. And those biotoxins can be a lot of different things. The most common are like mold or tick-borne illness, Pfiesteria, blooming like bioluminescent algae. So there's a lot of them. we actually got a DM today about like someone got bit by a brown recluse spider, which is one of the biotoxins, but it was the first time I'd actually met someone who had had that biotoxin. But what it does is it triggers your innate immune system to respond to that biotoxin. But the genetic part is your body is not able to create the antibodies to remove that biotoxin. So what happens is your body just gets stuck in this innate inflammatory response. It can't hand off to the adaptive immune system. And the chronic inflammation is actually what's making you sick, not the biotoxin. It's the chronic inflammation. The biotoxin might also have direct neuro effects, but mostly it's the chronic inflammation. And then to me, that's really cool because it's your body trying so hard to keep you safe that it's actually starting to hurt you. So even though different people can have different manifestations of CIRS, for me, it was arthritis and pain. For Barbara, it was GI. For a lot of people, it's chronic fatigue or migraines. Even though it manifests differently, you can treat it all in the same way because what you're really doing is, 1, removing yourself from exposure, 2, helping your body to remove the biotoxin. And then we follow the Shoemaker protocol, which is the only clinically proven path to healing from CIRS, because both Barbara and I were like, we're not wasting our time on anything that's not proven. We've tried enough. But there's 12 steps to the total protocol. Everyone does steps 1 and 2, removing yourself from exposure, removing the biotoxin, and everyone does step 12, which is correcting the neuroinflammation. But the other steps are just indicated by your symptoms. Not everyone has to do every step of the 12-step protocol, but it's proven that if you follow the 12 steps, you'll heal from CIRS.
I have nothing to add. She said that perfectly.
Okay, so I'm really interested because I would say that I've been on Carnivore for like 15 months now, and I actually still have GI issues too. So I was curious, what were your GI issues specifically? And
Ooh,
Let's talk about poop.
yeah.
but you ready? It's fun.
Pooped.
I like how you had that perfect.
Yes. Oh man. So I will describe it actually more generally because I've had lots of conversations with people who have also come to CIRS treatment for GI issues. It can present in multiple ways still, so we can fully further divide it down. It can be more on the diarrhea side, or it can be more on the constipation side. It can be bloating. It can be pain with eating. It can be an intolerance in general to foods, which again, if you come to something like Carnivore, you're obviously eliminating a lot of potential inflammatory foods. So we find that a fun fact about CIRS is it genetically affects about 1/4 of the population, which is pretty significant, but it probably affects even more people than that in the carnivore space, because come on now, who's crazy enough to go carnivore? If they're trying to escape some kind of painful existence and they're trying to feel better, there are going to be more people like that come to a diet like carnivore, I would say. So yeah, any digestive issue, if you are still not feeling well, like I said, I was carnivore for a full year and I still wasn't feeling great. And again, it's been over 3 years since I went carnivore. And even now, even with the treatment, I'm still not 100%. I have improved. And there've been some setbacks along my healing journey as far as getting into re-exposure and all that fun stuff. But generally speaking, I am absolutely more healed today than when I was just carnivore, and certainly also, obviously, since before I started carnivore. So I think every little bit of that removal of inflammation and removal of biotoxins and exposure, like JC was talking about, has really added up over time.
Can I get a little sciencey for just a second?
Please.
Okay, so Barbara mentioned 3 reasons why. Well, there's different manifestations of the GI issues you can have with CIRS. One of the hallmark symptoms of CIRS is low MSH or melanocyte stimulating hormone. It's because inflammatory cytokines attached to your pituitary gland, you can't produce MSH, and that has a lot of downstream effects. But one of them is it regulates the junctions, the tight junctions of your gut lining. So a lot of people with CIRS will have leaky gut type symptoms because their MSH is low. Another thing is your immune system is so dysregulated that it can cause a lot of co-infections because you're just very vulnerable to that. And then the third thing, Barbara mentioned this, was the intolerance to foods. So histamine reactions or MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, are two things we see commonly in CIRS. Because your body is filled with these biotoxins, those mast cells are constantly getting triggered, so they become overreactive. And to that point, one thing that can be really helpful in your CIRS journey, or even your carnivore journey, if you're looking for a way to kind of kickstart your CIRS journey, would be to do some form of limbic retraining so that you can start helping those errant histamine reactions start to die down.
I know I came in and I hear a lot of people are coming in because they had the bad virus. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I feel like that's a really common thing I'm hearing people. They said, I've just never been the same since I had the bad virus. And could this be an area where maybe they could get some relief?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, that was a big part of my CIRS journey, was exposure to the bad illness thing. And so step one, remove from exposure in the CIRS protocol. For some people, that's getting out of a moldy house. For a lot of people, that's what it is. And for some people, it's getting rid of the leftover bad virus pieces that are stuck in your body. So I actually did a spike protein protocol as part of my CIRS treatment as step one to remove myself from exposure. There's a lot of really great resources out there for that. If you can work with a provider, that's great, but you don't have to. Did I say that the bad virus is, it is one of the biotoxins, and that's why you would remove yourself from exposure. Sorry, I should have led with that.
And you had said how you don't necessarily have to work with a provider. I know what I've done is step one is so hard that it didn't seem like good use of money to start with a provider right away when I needed to move. And so I found you guys, your podcast and your group. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Sorry. Usually, yeah, JC and I do tag teams, so this works. Yeah. So we do have a weekly podcast called the Cirs Group podcast, and we like to take a specific theme or topic within the realm of CIRS each week and do a little bit of a deep dive on that and explore that. Lately, we've had a lot of guests on. We are not normally an interview-based podcast. It's usually just JC and I, but we made some great connections. Ooh, there it is. We made some great connections at this year's CIRSX conference, which is a conference mostly for the doctors treating CIRS to learn more about it. And so we've had a lot of experts on to talk about tick-borne illness, for example, breath work. We have someone coming on soon to talk about meditation. We have an IEP, which stands for Indoor Environmental Professional, to talk about the mold remediation process. You know, if you live in a home that has mold and you want to fix that, you want to hire a professional who really knows what they're doing and will clean it to the degree that it needs to be cleaned for someone like us who's extra susceptible to mold, more so than the average person. So we have we have guests on, but otherwise we talk about fun topics as well. And for the group, JC, do you want to handle that part?
Yeah, so when we got diagnosed, we thought we were so lucky to be diagnosed together because we had this built-in support system. Barbara and I were friends before we were diagnosed with CIRS. And we thought that other people would really appreciate a resource for that as well, just a support system through CIRS. CIRS can be very isolating, both in that it's really hard for you to go places and do things because you're not sure about exposure, but also it's really hard for other people to understand what your reality is like, even the people closest to you. Like I've had family members disown me over CIRS, you know, and sharing my health story online. So I think that it can be really helpful to have a community of people. You don't have to do this alone. And it can be really helpful to just have a group of people where if you have a random question, you can ask and not get a bunch of random Google results that aren't really applicable. Or if you're just having a really hard day, you can be like, today sucks. And people can validate that for you and be like, this does suck, but you're a really strong human. And I'm really proud of you for doing this work because you're like, you deserve this and your health deserves this.
So how do you ladies feel carnivore, like, does it integrate with all of the Cirs things that you're doing, or do you feel that they're kind of separate? Like, does it help? Is it a parallel course to each other, or does it integrate with your health journeys?
For me, I'm really grateful I was carnivore when I got really sick with Cirs because it could have been a lot worse for me. A lot of people with Cirs will tell us stories of like they almost, didn't make it. And I think that if I hadn't been carnivore, my symptoms would have been much, much worse than they were. And it could have been a very different path for me. So for me, I'm really grateful that I had carnivore. And chronic inflammatory response syndrome is an issue with inflammation. And we know that carnivore is amazing at reducing inflammation. And so I think it can be really supportive to anyone's Cirs journey to pursue a carnivore diet. And on top of that, for people who have histamine issues, it might be your only option to get you through the Cirs treatment until you stop being so hyper-reactive to different foods. So to me, it's kind of the diet I would choose to do through Cirs. I think it makes a lot of sense from a lot of different standpoints.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that according to the Shoemaker protocol, the only restriction that they really insist upon is a low amylose diet, which is basically starches. So it's not fully carnivore, but you are removing any type of sugary fruit and all of like potatoes and rice and all the other things, obviously bread, all that. So have people healed from Cirs without going the carnivore route? Yes, actually, because this illness was discovered back in the 90s, right, JC? Early 90s or something
97.
like that? Oh, 97. There we go. That was a good year. So ever since then, the Shoemaker protocol has been tested out basically and shown and proven effective with the standard American diet minus these starches. So I would say for carnivore, you're exactly what JC just said. You are boosting your ability to heal because you're removing more inflammatory items from your diet by doing it. But not only that, the binders that you need to take are actually cholesterol lowering medications. They're not statins, so don't worry about that. But they were intended to lower cholesterol. It's just a nice side effect that they bind toxins and help you eliminate them. So all the more reason it's great for carnivores or for people who have Cirs to be carnivore because our cholesterol tends to be higher, right? And so when we're taking this medication, we're not in danger of our cholesterol going too low, theoretically. Obviously, keep tracking that while you're none of this is medical advice, by the way. Did we say that at the top? Definitely talk to your doctor. But generally speaking, it's good to keep an eye on your cholesterol while you are on the binders because they will lower it. But again, when you're carnivore, you have less to worry about.
Hopefully it's not a little better. Sorry about that earlier. Getting to know Adrian, this is how we learned about Cirs, and she mentioned that she had water damage in her home. What if somebody has water damage, or what is something that you could do so that you don't develop Cirs?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of
JC, could you repeat her question? Because you seem like you got it and I didn't, and maybe other people didn't.
Okay, so Ellie said, Adrian had mentioned that she got Cirs from water damage in her home. And so if someone has water damage in their home, what should they do, or how could they prevent that from happening? So prevention, it's really about home maintenance. There are things called leak alarms that you can buy. They're really cheap at Home Depot, or you can get like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth enabled ones that are a little more expensive, but will alert you on your phone. And just put them near any water source. You can also put pans under any sort of watery appliance like your washing machine or your hot water heater underneath your sinks. And those are really great preventative measures. But in terms of if you have water damage in your home, it's really about remediation, which for a lot of people is really difficult. For myself, I didn't end up remediating, I ended up moving. So that's another option, is finding a location that doesn't have water damage. But if you kind of want to assess the biotoxin level in your own home, there's this really great test called the HERTSMI-2. It's HERTSMI-2. I don't like spelling publicly, but it'll give you a rating of the most specific to Cirs molds in your home. And if it's under 10, you should be able to heal on that location. Now there's other things called actinos and endos that could also be affecting you, and there are tests for those on envirobiomics.com. But for most people, it is the mold in conjunction with actinos that is making them sick.
Yeah, and I would just add, any kind of leak, any kind of water intrusion at all that isn't dried up, especially within 48 hours, but ideally even quicker than that, can grow mold. So even if, my something overflowed, but we dried it a couple days later, then some mold might be hanging out where you can't see it. And the problem with mold is obviously it grows, and I kind of liken it to a cockroach. Like if you see one, you probably see a lot, there's actually a lot more just behind the wall. Same with mold, and it will get airborne and you breathe it in, and that's how you're getting sick. And when it is airborne, it will coat all of your possessions as well. So it becomes this big, and I don't mean to overwhelm anyone, but that's part of the reason that it's such a painful step to get through, is getting out of exposure. And that's why JC mentioned she moved and she felt better. I moved too before I knew I had Cirs, from California to Las Vegas, and I did feel better here. And I thought that was weird, but I had no idea why. Obviously now I know why, because it's much drier here. And I was living in apartments in California. Now I live in a townhouse, and I also own it. So I'm much more in control of my environment here. Lots of things are adding up. So I guess I just want to point out any water leak that you've had, even if it seemed minor, maybe a window had some water coming in and you noticed halfway through the rainy season. So anything like that can really cause a problem that you can't see, and you might not even smell it. So that's why JC mentioned the HERTSMI-2 test. Those are great because you can go and collect the new dust from your home and send it to a lab, and they will identify the actual species of mold that are growing. Hopefully none, hopefully very little, and you're fine. But if there are some that's growing, not only is it good to know that, obviously, but also if you can identify the species, which this particular test will do, and most mold tests do not, but if you can identify the species, that will actually help you determine what they are growing on or how they formed, because different mold species like different surfaces and different conditions. Now I got sciencey, kind of.
I knew that there was water damage in our house, but we hired someone to come in and they just did an air sample and they told us our house was fine. Yet I kept getting sick. So they cut a hole in the ceiling because I said, I've had water dripping from here. And then they just sprayed it with bleach, painted over it, and patched it back up. And now the mold is back. So the reason I'm telling this story isn't to scare people, but I found a lot of information between your podcast and then finding out too who are IEPs that I can go follow, and then also just some support when I go to your group and I say, oh my gosh, can you believe this happened? I just want to cry. It was $10,000 and or whatever, it was $5 million and the mold is still there and everybody thinks I'm crazy. And then everybody says, oh, we've got you. But there's solutions there too. It's not just misery. So I just want to plug you guys one more time. But so should people be using bleach? And
No.
and can they just put some kills over it?
No. You want full removal of any affected thing that is porous that the mold is growing on. What you can launder and wipe down, great. Then that's probably a good situation for those items. But if it's a porous material like drywall, which by the way is mold food, unfortunately, and that's what we build our friggin' houses out of, that's what you want to actually fully remove it like a cancer. You want to cut it out completely, get it out of your house, throw it away, and replace it. Anything that mold is covering like that, it's the ideal thing to do is to replace it. But Adrian, to your point, you want a Cirs literate indoor environmental professional. There are some that will do virtual appointments because I know obviously not everyone's going to live near one that knows about all of this. And trust me, the Cirs community is doing the best they can to educate more and more mold or remediator type of people out there so that they can become Cirs literate IEPs as well. But so many of them do exactly what you described, Adrian. They don't actually take care of the root of the problem. They just cover it up because a lot of people who aren't quite as susceptible to this stuff maybe are okay with that. Honestly, though, I mean, even if I didn't have Cirs genes, I would not be okay with living in a house with that situation going on, you know, where somebody just covered it up. It's going to be bad for everyone, even if you don't have Cirs. JC,
Yeah.
did you have anything to add?
Yeah, Gail is in the chat. Hi, Gail. And she mentioned that dead mold is as bad as live mold, and that is absolutely true. So we are impacted by biotoxins, dead or alive. Our body doesn't recognize whether it's dead or alive. It just recognizes that it's in our body. And so it can react to it even if it's dead. So bleaching isn't super helpful, and bleach actually also makes mold retract away from the bleach. And that's a problem because it's just making it go further into, you know, the grout or further into the wall. So you want to use something acidic, like I clean with vinegar. Some people like this product called EC3, and then some people like Fantastic is another thing that's kind of been studied and shown to be effective against it. But the big thing is removal. So for example, if you are wiping stuff down, get rid of those cloths. If you are, you know, laundering stuff, make sure that you're washing it frequently. We kind of mentioned actinos and endos, and actinos are the bacteria that eat mold. And a lot of people are affected by actinos. And with actinos specifically, it's cleaning regimens. You want to clean, 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 and just make sure you're constantly removing them from your environment. And the reason you have to do that is because not only do they eat mold, they also eat dead skin, and we are the source of the dead skin. So it's making sure you're scrubbing your body and making sure you're cleaning your linens quite frequently and using like a HEPA vacuum. And then endotoxins, just to touch on that really briefly, that would be anything to do with sewage. So if it smells poopy, it is poopy. Very often. Yeah, where's the poop alert? But one common source of endotoxins is it's because your P traps have dried out. And so P traps, the way they work is they trap smells, endotoxins, by having water in that P trap. So if they evaporate, they're not effectively trapping all the sewage smells coming back up the pipe. So just making sure you're doing, again, home maintenance and hydrating the pipes. Is that what we're hydrating the pipes frequently?
Yeah,
like
give them
little plants.
Give them a little water, little guys. Yeah. and in case anyone's like, pee trap, is that where I pee? If you look under any sink, it's a P-shaped trap. I'm trying to do it on camera and I'm not doing it very well, but it's a little loopy guy. And so you just want to always make sure that that's filled with water. If there's a drain in your house that you never use, it is probably dry and is allowing sewage gas to come back into your home. So please fill those up with water every couple weeks. Set an alarm or a reminder if you need to, or you just use that drain. Decide to go wash your hands over there if you need to.
Can I add something? I've never heard anybody talk about this, but I was hatching quail and brooding meat chickens inside my home. And I know that I'm not the only person that's done this. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and homesteading is getting more popular, and it's fantastic. You know, people getting back to the roots, you know, and living more ancestrally and growing their own food. These are all really positive things. So I hate to say anything negative about that lifestyle, and I still won't. But in that situation, you do have to be careful, more careful of endotoxins, because yes, composting, dealing with hay, dealing with livestock, obviously dealing with chickens and all of that, quail, those are more opportunities to put yourself in exposure with endotoxins.
And just to make it fair, domestic animals can be a problem too, because we heard a story of one person who was getting sick from endotoxins because their litter box was near the return vent for their AC, so it was sucking the endotoxins into their whole house. And then another person was sick from endotoxins because their neighbor wasn't picking up their dog poop.
Yeah, it just like if you have a yard and you just let your dog out there to poop and you don't pick it up frequently, please, like, just do that and tell your neighbor to do that. That stuff wafts over and can make everybody sick. And endotoxins are maybe one of the worst biotoxins, because they can actually make your brain atrophy faster than the others. So not just to give you another nightmare tonight, guys, but just to really hammer home how important it is to maintain a clean environment and to avoid exposures like that.
So earlier, one of you guys mentioned the spike protocol, and Carnivore Communicator is asking, do you have a spike protocol that you like? I get sick if I stop taking the I word.
I really like the resources from the FLCCC Alliance. They have multiple protocols, some for post bad virus and some from post sticky pokey thing for the bad virus. But if you are continuously doing the eye medicine and you have to keep doing it to feel okay, it might be that you also need to do Cirs treatment, because doing the spike protein protocol is just that step one of removing yourself from exposure. But then following that, you would want to then eliminate the other biotoxins that might be in your body. The way that spike protein works is that it triggers your reactivity to other biotoxins. So people who were never sick before get the bad virus. And how many times have we heard, I just never felt the same since? And it's because it triggered Cirs for them.
Do I sound better or worse?
Yay, you sound great.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being patient. There's a huge storm, so much water outside. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, no.
So it's so funny because it's actually not funny. It was kind of like a nightmare. The place that I lived before this, we were having so many water issues. We were having it was really gross. We were having our sinks coming up, and the dishwasher smelled like sewage, and the sewage pipe that was under the dishwasher was flooding, and it was like an absolute nightmare. There was a whole month where I couldn't use the bathroom. I had to go outside. We don't have to get into all that. That's not why I'm saying this, but I just think it's so important that we talk about this, because these things happen and it can affect us so much. And you guys had mentioned that you were disowned from family members from talking about this, and and you mentioned the words isolation and not feeling and that this is scary and this is a nightmare. Can we give some positive hope and encouragement for anybody that is possibly suffering with this or might be scared?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the Shoemaker protocol is clinically proven. So for me, with how bad I was and how public I was about the badness, I got a lot of suggestions. People were constantly telling me oh, you should try a lion diet. That gave me histamine reactions to beef, by the way. Love beef now, but for a moment there, I was can't eat steak. And people would just give me suggestions all the time of things I could do to cure my chronic illness. And I think I got a little bit of learned hopelessness. Each time I tried something and it didn't work, it was a little bit harder to try the next thing, which is why when Judy Cho approached me with Cirs, I was a little skeptical at first. But it's so nice to have this clinically proven protocol where if you just follow the steps, and I don't mean to make light of step number one, which is removing yourself from exposure. For a lot of people, that is really difficult, remediation or having to move. But once you get past that, the rest of the 11 steps are so simple and so sequential that you have this path to healing. And I'm not going to say Sally Norton, the Oxalate Queen, if you guys are familiar with her, she has this really great saying that if you're climbing Mount Everest, you don't get to take an elevator to the top. You have to do switchbacks. And that's good, right? Because if you took an elevator to the top of Mount Everest, you would die. Like you would, oxygen starvation, it would not be a good situation. So you have these switchbacks. You might have setbacks along the way, but especially if you have, you know, the Cirs Group or some sort of community you can hold on to, you have people reaching back behind you, like pulling you up that mountain. We just like, when we see people in the group struggling, we're just like, let's go. Come on. We're going up this mountain. I know it's hard right now, but you don't have to do this alone. We've got you. And this is your next step. And you always have that next step because the protocol is so well laid out. So it's like, okay, it's almost like a game board. Like I think of it like Candyland, like you're just taking these steps and sometimes you have a little loop along the way and it's not just like to the end there. But for me, it's been life-changing. For me, this is the work that I needed to do in order to get my life back, in order to be a productive human being and be able to contribute again to the world. I would not be anywhere near where I am today if I hadn't had Cirs treatment. I would still be walking with a cane. I would be blind in my right eye. I would be having chronic GI issues that made it difficult for me to leave my home. So today, I can tell you I have done the Shoemaker protocol and I am symptom-free. And so to me, that's the most beautiful part of this work is seeing the people heal, seeing people get better. And like Adrian, not to throw you under the bus, but when you first started attending the group calls, you could just see that you didn't feel well. And that broke our hearts. But like seeing you today and seeing you improve over time has been so powerful and so amazing. And I'm just so grateful to have the privilege of seeing that.
Yeah, I would say the group has been such a gift to us, even more than we could have even imagined. JC and I were just thankful to have each other when we first got diagnosed and started to heal. But to be able to start a group, have people join, and then to have people like Adrian and witness this amazing transformation in others as we saw in ourselves is just magical. And I know people throw around the term clinically proven, and I just want to like illustrate that Dr. Shoemaker and other doctors have actually proven the protocol's effectiveness over dozens of published papers, peer-reviewed, with I think thousands of patients at this point, and that can all be found over at survivingmold.com. So if you are skeptical and you're like, oh, I don't know about this thing, like this is really, it's been proven time and time again with its effectiveness. And anecdotally, JC and I get to see so many stories like Adrian's all the time where you just see the improvement. And Adrian, you're not all the way to the end, right? You still have some symptoms that you're dealing with, but the improvement is visible even to us just at the point that you're at. Sorry, go ahead. I think I cut you off before.
Me? No. A year ago, I could not drive a half an hour. I today drove 10 hours. I was so inflamed that the fluids weren't going to my head and my arms and legs were going numb. So I have things to work on, but I'm a functional mom again. Like I'm literally getting my life back. I couldn't even hardly make sentences before, and I couldn't remember what I talked to you about 5 minutes ago, and my brain is improving. It's amazing. And I too had tried so many things, and I was just told, my family started telling me I just needed to go to the psych ward. So it's amazing to have something that you can truly get better. I probably should have ended that with a question. It's just gratitude over here. I guess I want to share here. Gail had said, and I kind of like this, and so I'm hoping you can tell us. I guess I can't do it because I'm on a phone, but she said, don't make your bed. Is that something for real? Because I hate making my bed.
Yeah, so dust mites. I don't know if you have a dust mite alarm. This is kind of gross. So dust mites, they like to proliferate in moist, dark environments. So if you are in your bed all night, you're creating moisture as you sleep. And then when you wake up in the morning, if you immediately make your bed, those dust mites are going to have a good time.
They're going to have a little party.
They're going to have a little proliferation party. So if you leave your bed unmade, at least for the beginning part of the day, give it an hour to like air out that moisture to evaporate, and then you make it, you're going to have far less dust mites than you would otherwise.
Delicious.
I swear, the more you learn, the more terrified you are of everything. I'm making a joke. I don't want to scare anybody. Like, I think everyone here has just been, being really positive, and they're like, you can heal, which I really appreciated you sharing those, your story and how much you've changed. And it's just like amazing how when you fight, like we all have like, a little bit of like a keyhole, right? And you can try all sorts of different keys and then you get frustrated because you're locked out. But then once you know the correct information, the door just opens, and then that's where you can start to set out on your path. So I've definitely been there with, other health issues that I've had that I've found so wonderful on the carnivore diet. I want to say like a silly, goofy question, like, what's your favorite meal on carnivore?
That's a fun one. Well, JC, I know you already have one ready to go, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what is it?
I have eggs and bacon every morning. Every single morning. Lately, I've been putting, this is a hot tip, y'all. If you take one thing away from this podcast, take this. What I've been doing lately is I take some plain unflavored Greek yogurt and smear it on the plate and then put my over medium eggs on top of it. And then I like mix the yolks in with the Greek yogurt, and it's like super easy hollandaise because the yogurt is kind of sour. So you get like hollandaise vibes, but it's so easy. So I'll have that couple of eggs on top of Greek yogurt and bacon every single morning.
Beautiful. And I'm on a pork chop kick. So, and in fact, the meal I just had right before recording today with you guys was a little baby pork chop and some halloumi because I couldn't find bread cheese at the store, but still it was delicious. So those were, that combo was fantastic. Of course, with butter on top and the whole deal.
So Deb said she's going to try the yogurt and eggs. And also, Deb, this was cracking me up earlier, and I had to say this. So she said, yay, my years not making my bed has paid off. Why didn't I know that when I was a kid? Then I would have an answer to my mom when she tried to get me to make my bed, right? Dust mites, though, Mom. Dust mites. It's funny.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness. Well, what do you think about spinning our meaty wheel? Should we give it a spin and see what we can...
Sounds like a good time.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pop that up here. Okay, so here is our meaty wheel. I'm going to give it a good spin and we'll see what kind of question we can hunt down for you. Okay, are there any resources or communities other than your own awesome community, obviously, that have been particularly helpful for you?
JC, you want to go first?
Yeah, on the carnivore side of things, for me, the Instagram carnivore community was kind of where I first started interacting with other carnivores. And I think there's something really beautiful about connecting with people who have the same lifestyle standards, values that you do, because it just allows you to have every conversation off of that kind of same baseline. And so I met Barbara through the carnivore community. I wouldn't have Barbara in my life without it. And so I'm just really grateful for the carnivore Instagram community. And then on the Cirs side of things, after I finally decided to peek back into the Cirs box the second time that Judy Cho told me to, Andrew Heyman's series on YouTube, they're very sciencey. So if you're drawn to that kind of thing, that was so good for me. It was what allowed me to dive both feet in when I started my Cirs journey, was just having that really good scientific understanding of Cirs.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that I have slightly different answers, although I totally agree with what JC just said too. For the carnivore side, Laura Spath, hands down. She has a locals group. It's a very supportive community. So if you notice that sometimes on YouTube, especially, there can be some negative comments and like people being dumb. It's nice sometimes to have a community that is behind a paywall because it gatekeeps the crazies out a little bit. So that is helpful. And I'm a member of her group, and it's just really, I love how Laura approaches carnivore. It's very realistic. She has kids that are, more on the keto side, and they make, and I've had her and Chris Spath's cooking amazing. Like, they are really great at making meat taste like next level incredible. And I need that. I need my food to taste really good if I'm going to eat it. I can't just air fry a steak. I'm sorry. Like, that's not going to happen. So I really like hers. And then for other community in the Cirs world, our very good friend, Dr. Christian Navarro-Torres, not a medical doctor, but PhD researcher, and also fellow Cirs patient. He has a website called cirslab.com, and it's a community also on the Circle platform. And he focuses more on the research aspect and digging into new hypothesi. What? He's
I'm not even going to help you.
No, don't. I don't deserve it. But he's on the cutting edge, I'd say, of really exploring new supportive therapies and like supplements. He is his own human guinea pig, that man. But he's always trying something new. So if you're interested in kind of that more scientific based community, his is fantastic for that.
Awesome.
Everyone wants you to know it's hypotheses.
Oh, okay. Beautiful. Thank you, everyone.
I would love to give you the opportunity to plug anything that you'd like, talk about any upcoming projects, your socials. How can people find you?
I am everywhere at Lady Carnivore. On Instagram, I share a lot of mindset-oriented stuff, but also berate people into trying my yogurt eggs. I also have a website, ladycarnivore.com, where you can check out free carnivore recipes. They tend to be quirky and really kid-friendly. And then finally, I have a really exciting thing, and I think this is the first public space I'm announcing this. I wrote a book. It's called The 30-Day Carnivore Boot Camp. So it's all about getting people onto the carnivore diet, talking through the science of the carnivore diet, but also the practicalities of the carnivore diet, especially when you're first starting. And then also talking about the implications, like, what if carnivore doesn't fully heal you? What do you do next? So it's available for pre-order. It's not coming out until December, but I'm very excited for that.
So excited. I've already pre-ordered mine as soon as I could. It's very, very exciting. For me, I'm at Act Like Barbara everywhere on all of the platforms, although I'm most active on Instagram. I do have a website as well, actlikebarbara.com. I do business coaching, actually, especially people who are trying to escape a very unfulfilling, boring, crappy job for either a job or a business that they love and are fulfilled by. Ideally helping others. That tends to be, where my passion is. Like, so if their business is helping others, that makes me even more excited. So I do that. And obviously the cirsgroup.com for all things Cirs.
Well, amazing. I want to add too, very interesting. If you follow JC, she will also inspire you to be more conscious with your spending. And I love that. I love that piece, because it's of health that we don't even think about sometimes, but it's really important, especially as everything's inflating. And I love Barbara also brings up some fertility stuff that's very interesting. So are we ready for our roar? Okay, I'm gonna count us down, and then everybody put your roars in the chat. All right, 3, 2, 1.
Roar! Yay!
Makes me so happy every week, ladies.
That was fun. I don't even know the last time I roared. Like, have I ever?
Maybe
You should do some more. Biohack. Go to the mirror every morning and just roar. You're all out there.
That's your next. Your next 30-day challenge, JC.
Post it on Instagram. It'd be fun.
I love it.
Oh,
Look
these
at
are
all
great
these
roars. Thanks, guys.
Bruce, just plain roar. I love it.
Classic.
I did have an intrusive thought. It was like, I could meow. I could go meow when everyone else is roaring.
We
but I didn't.
we accept meows and mews around here. It's fine.
Okay. Okay.
As long as it's feline. There's no
Yes.
no wolves. No wolfing in the chat.
Aw.
Oh yeah, I don't know where Eric is. He'll pop in later, probably after the show, because he has to get his picanha roar in there for us, I'm sure. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, JC and Barbara, for coming on and sharing your knowledge. You're so knowledgeable about this. I learned a lot from you this evening. Thanks for watching out there, everybody, and we hope to see you back next Tuesday when we will have yet another amazing guest for you guys. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
you.